Hello, Miss Scarborough. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to meet with me. Before I start asking you the questions, my name is Nailani, and I contacted you to ask you some questions regarding your profession of a counseling psychologist, and I'm very intrigued to hear your answers to each of them. Now let's begin with the first question. What impact do interpersonal communication skills have on your work and your progress in your profession as a counseling psychologist?
As a counselor, I rely on my interpersonal communication skills all the time. I have to be an effective communicator with what I say, my verbal cues, and what I listen. I rely on my communication in order to assess, in order to establish a relationship with the person or the patient, and to understand their circumstances. I need to listen and listen closely to what they say and make sure that things match, that what is being said matches the verbal cues and tone and all of that. So I have to be careful with the way I say things, so it's not only what I say, making sure that it's appropriate and that it's at a level that the person can understand, but also that my posture, my tone, and my facial expressions are matching. So if I'm trying to be sympathetic or show empathy towards someone, that my posture as well as my tone and as well as my facial expression convey the same thing. And when it comes to listening, making sure that I listen to what the person is saying, and that I also pay attention to their verbal cues, their posture, their demeanor, and all of that.
Perfect. It's great to hear that you really make use of your interpersonal communication skills during the sessions with your clients to understand them to the fullest potential, and it's great to see. Now, mentioning sessions with your clients, I wanted to ask, what was one of the most challenging cases you handled as a counseling psychologist, and what were the results after the session?
One of the most challenging cases. That's a good one. I'm gonna go with a case when I was relatively new in the field, and it was a woman that came with her son after being a victim of domestic violence. She moved across states with the assistance of various systems to ensure that the person that had attacked her couldn't find her. And so she had a long history of mental health issues, traumatic brain injury, and all of those things put together. So I had to establish a relationship with her, develop trust. However, she presented homicidal at my office, with intent and a way to carry through. So we had to go through the Tarasoft process. So I have to use my communication to involve the team to ensure that everyone in the building was safe, that the person that she was making homicidal threats towards was notified. And I had to continue to have a relationship with her, so I had to communicate, process what happened, to ensure that we could continue to work together, even though, I had to involve the psychiatrist and get the team involved and notify the person that she had made homicidal threats. The result was that we continued to work together, and I assisted her through the process of getting permanent housing and, getting set up in another county and developing, linkages to her new living situation. And eventually she got transferred to another service because she moved out of the catchment area where I worked.
Thank you for giving me such a great answer. It's really helpful to get a look into your field of work, since you do have to make sure to stay professional in instances like this with clients who are a bit harder to come to terms with, and use your communication skills at your fullest potential. When talking about all the communication skills you use daily as a counseling psychologist, how do you use nonverbal cues during counseling sessions?
I use nonverbal cues in counseling sessions all the time, both myself. There's times where I have to ensure that my posture, my tone, my demeanor conveys the intent of my communication, as well as use silence. When there's silence, sometimes as a counselor, you just have to go with the silence and let it process. And I can use nonverbal cues to convey understanding, empathy, and being open to listen, and kind of like an encouragement to get that person to open up and discuss and talk about their lives, their painful events, or whatever it is, the presenting problem that is bringing them to service. I also use nonverbal cues, meaning being aware of the nonverbal cues that the patient is bringing in. Someone might be resistant to talk, but you start to see certain gestures that indicate that the person is starting to feel more comfortable in the relationship. Or someone is saying something that is, very sad, but their demeanor and their tone or their facial expressions do not match. And then, you have to explore the reasons why those don't match. Ranging from, the person might have some kind of psychotic disorder to just a coping mechanism.
It's great to hear that everything was sorted out professionally, and I'm glad your nonverbal communication skills helped you to understand your client and her actions and the feelings behind them. In order to continue understanding them, how do you maintain boundaries with clients during a session while still helping them feel comfortable talking to you confidentially?
At the beginning of the therapeutic relationship, you discuss with the patient or client the role of the therapeutic relationship, especially the one of the therapist, and the boundaries that come associated with that. Confidentiality is a big portion of that discussion, and it's important to discuss the times when the therapist, by law and by the code of ethics, will need to breach confidentiality. That's in the case that the person is in danger due to, suicidal ideations and those types of things, when someone else is in danger due to homicidal ideation, like in the case that I shared about before, or when there's child abuse or neglect, because counselors are mandated reporters. So that has to be reported. So it has to be clear to the person, so the person is aware about when confidentiality will be breached if needed. So in terms of keeping boundaries but still relating to the person and being human, I guess, there's times that you might share kind of like generic information or generic experiences, like if someone is trying to quit smoking, you might talk a little bit about your experience with quitting caffeine, for example. So, and how difficult it was, and kind of like in a generic fashion where there's no harmful information being shared with the person. It doesn't blur the boundaries, but the person is able to relate to you as a human being.
Setting these boundaries, from what I can see, are a very important step towards balancing a relationship with your patients, and is a great humble act to make them feel like they aren't alone in their struggles, as you're walking with them towards a road of recovery. Being a counseling psychologist has many aspects and responsibilities along with it, as you have talked to me about in some of these things today. So, to finish off this interview, I wanted to ask you, how do you stay organized, motivated, and professional as a counseling psychologist yourself?
In order to stay professional and organized and motivated, you have to have self-care. You have to take care of yourself, ensure that you manage stress, that you have ways to balance your work and life and personal life routines, that you engage in self-care, whether it is yoga, listening to music, reading, finding ways to de-stress. and finding things that make you, stay focused. And in terms of organized, it depends what you're talking about, but most times you have to create tracking mechanisms so that you ensure that you follow all the guidelines related to treatment planning, billing. So that's a way to stay organized, keeping your calendar up to date, so that you know when you have appointments, and to collaborate with your peers in order to get coverage when needed, and also to have a way to share and discuss with others. Supervision is important too, so that you can process some of the information and some of what you've been dealing with as a professional with others that are qualified to provide, assistance with processing and identifying better ways to deal and manage with, some of the cases and some of the circumstances that are presented. And to remain professional, you have to conduct yourself, keep your boundaries, seek supervision, and also seek, therapy possibly for yourself to process some of the issues that you might encounter. And that is always helpful because, being able to sit in the chair of the client or the patient helps to understand how to better relate and how to establish a working and therapeutic relationship.
This advice really helped me to establish a new look into the career path that has interested me my whole life, making it overall a more positive outlook. Striving for success in this profession takes a lot of work and dedication, which I can see you already do and continue to do. Those were all of my questions for you. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your already very busy day to talk to me, but still giving me amazing detailed responses. I learned so much from this interaction, and I'm looking forward to learning more as I continue in my studies to be a counseling psychologist in the future.